And here we are. Hi. So wait to get the chat up because I don't have my glasses downstairs. It's Coach MK saying hi. Whew. I had a good long run today. Very satisfying, gotta say. And while I'm sitting here spending extra time on the foam roller, because God knows I need it, I wanted to talk about two things that have been in the news a lot and kind of impact my clients. So when I say us, I just mean the people that gravitate towards me in any way are probably parents. They tend to be parents. I have a few clients who aren't, and I hope this conversation does not makes you feel excluded in any way. Just knowing that most of the people that I train will at some point want to do a marathon. And I say that again lovingly. If you don't want that, I don't really care. It's just people don't think they ever need to hire a coach for any reason unless they have a big goal, and the biggest goal most people can think of is a marathon. And you might want to do that on your own once or twice before you think maybe it's a good idea to have someone I can ask questions. Just a little coaching, minimal amount of coaching. I want to be seen asking questions. I just want someone maybe to help me when I need it, but I'm not really going to need it. And that tends to be the thought process. Now, I've yet to meet a person that hired a coach for a 5K or a 10K, which is why you don't find a lot of those programs, training programs specific to that or the mile for anyone older than a high school student online. So with that in mind, knowing that most of the people that listen to me talk for any extended period are either parents or marathoners, there's a lot of crossover. It's usually both. The two topics I kind of want to touch on without going too deeply into, believe it or not, are the announcements from the International Olympic Committee, followed up very quickly by the USATF, the U.S. Association of Track and Field, the two governing bodies, as well as the recent admissions scandal, which we all are like, Lori Loughlin from Full House, what? Felicity, what? Oh my God. Of course Carmela Soprano. Wait, that wasn't Carmela Soprano. This was all the conversations that I've been hearing a lot of this week. And here's what I think you need to know in order to have this conversation, because it is super duper complicated. It is so complicated that right now professional athletes are arguing about whether or not this is good for them or good for the sport, because for some distances it's clearly not, and other distances it really is. For some countries this is great, for others it's like, wah. So broadly and generally speaking, one of the amazing and exciting things about the Olympics is that theoretically anyone can go. It's the American dream personified on multiple levels. Take, for example, 1996. You might not remember the name Jenny Spangler, but she'd had years and years and years and years and years of injuries, and she had one good day. And that was always kind of the idea behind the Olympics. You just need one good day, and you're on the team. That's what keeps people going for decades, really. One good day, just chasing that one good day where they'll finally get the payout, they'll get the spot, they'll get whatever it is they need to move forward. And for Jenny Spangler, she won the Olympic trials that year. And she went to the Olympics. It was in 1996. And that is, I reference her for reasons that will become important in a minute. And I'm only going to talk about the marathon. I'm not going to talk about any other distance because, not that I don't care, it's just infinitely more complicated when you are a professional 5 or 10,000 indoor-outdoor runner. There's a lot more going on and far more meets throughout the year. That's also more opportunities to qualify and to make money, which is why you're seeing increasing numbers of high-profile athletes like Stephanie Bruce, and Amy Craig and Molly Huddle that will run professionally 5Ks, 10Ks, halves and fulls. Used to be like you saw one distance and didn't really see much outside of that. Now, for a variety of reasons, mostly having to do with exposure, I would assume, and monetary opportunities, which makes sense, right? You gotta eat. Ain't nobody feeding you. There are a lot of Olympic athletes that live below the poverty line, but that's a separate issue. So it used to be What happened? So what happened in Doha when 6 days ago? The announcement came through that the Olympic qualifying standards had changed. And those new standards are high. They are really high. Generally speaking, for the past 30 to 50 years, the U.S. standards have matched the Olympic standards, meaning to qualify for the Olympics was the same as qualifying for the trials in the United States. 245 for women and 219 for men. If that was called the B standard. The A standard, so that also, you meet amateur runners all the time, like amateur meaning like the nurses, right? The Sarah Sellers, the Emma Bates, who aren't paid to run all the time, who literally have other day jobs, but then show up, have one really great day, and yay, they're going to the trials. And if they have one more really great day, yay, they could go to the Olympics. Again, the American dream. Average person, an ordinary person doing extraordinary things. And now those standards have been raised, okay, to 229.30 for women and 211.30 for the men. That's a big jump. That's a huge jump. And this is uproarious for one big reason. The Olympic window, qualifying window, is already open. It opened on January the 1st. It closes on May 19th or 20th in 2020. So, and again, that feels like a long time, but when you planned out your season and you planned out the money you're going to make and where you're going to show up, now all of that might be in flux. And it's maddening, and it's not fair. And you have to wonder, if we knew that these changes were coming, and that the standards were going to jump by this much, would the United States have picked Atlanta for the trials? I mean, it's notoriously hot, it's notoriously humid, and it's way hillier than LA, which was also hot and humid. Houston, it's hit or miss. We had a great day in 2012. I was living there at the time when the trials were held in Houston. And it was still a pretty good day on the warmer side, but a pretty darn good day in LA. And those choices were pretty simple. We needed to pick something that was going to imitate the climate that the athletes would be facing in Rio, so LA at the time made sense. Which is not to say that Atlanta doesn't make sense, but I've lived in Japan too. Unless things have changed a whole lot, I can't find a lot that's extremely similar between Atlanta and Tokyo. But that's beside the point. This goes back to the whole notion, USATF, and the International Olympics Association, they don't have the best reputation for anything. Like, they're notoriously very, very, very corrupt. There are a lot of questions about the way things are done. And there's also a lot of uproar about WADA, the World Anti-Doping Association, and who it monitors and how, and which countries do and which countries don't monitor randomly or even routinely throughout the year. So now, with this gigantic jump in qualifying times all across the board, on one hand, it's easy to argue that this is going to increase incentives to dope throughout the year, and that's not incorrect. It becomes what I would call the Lance Armstrong problem. If everyone is doing it and you are not, and no one's ever really punished or sanctioned for it, are you the good guy or the dummy? It's understanding not just, it's easy to be like, doing drugs is bad, breaking rules is wrong. But again, the stakes are really high, and literally everyone around you is doing it. So again, if no one cares that the rules are being broken and none of it's being enforced, that's a really perverse incentive. Okay? So everyone says, I would never do that, until you're in a situation where you would and you want to. Nobody wants to go to a crack house at the end of the street and sit in the dark and smoke a crack pipe with strangers. That sounds like a terrible idea to most of us. But that's not what happens here, or a lot of the time, and these are the conversations we don't have with our kids. No one prepared me for working on Wall Street, where it would be where drugs were all, these weren't people sitting in seedy places doing drugs. These are people at beautiful homes making millions of dollars per year doing drugs on a Friday or a Saturday night. No one prepared me for that. No one prepared me for, I want to be this person except for that. And that's a lot of what a lot of the professional athletes face when they get to that level. It's like you're a dummy if you do, you're damned if you do, but you're a dummy if you don't at the same time. So there's that. This is not going to help that. They have done not a whole lot more to support WADA. And so in a sport that already had a lot of questions about its execution, of how clean it is and its ability to monitor itself, has now gone and upped the ante in a ridiculous way. Without getting more complicated than that, the whole idea of all you need is one good day is gone, because now, in order to be selected to go to the Olympics, you have to not just place in the top 3 at the trials, you have to meet that Olympic standard. And that Olympic standard, only one dude has met it since 2016 in the marathon, and that's Galen Rupp. Even Med hadn't met it. So there are other ways to qualify, and those are really, really complicated. It has to do with the International Olympic Committee wanting to have more big names showing up at its meets throughout the year, and I kind of get that. They say it's going to make it more fair. That remains to be seen. There are a lot of questions, but that's the main thing you need to know, is that the whole idea of you need one good day is gone. Because if you're Jenny Spangler in 1996 and you've had all this injury and you win the trials and you miss the standard by, say, 20 seconds, as she would have done in 1996, because she won in 2:29.50 something, and the standard, remind you, is 2:29.30. So unless she had enough points to have a high enough world ranking, we couldn't send her to the Olympics. So this part of the American dream is gone, at least for the marathon. So let's think of it this way: you're a woman, and they did. So I'd like that they did this now in a time when we're finally talking about the way women are treated in professional sport, and what is and isn't equal for us. And you don't have to care about what's equal for us, but you've got a whole lot of women in this country that run marathons and run in general, and think a lot or know someone that is training to achieve that Olympic B standard and go run the trials. None of them expect to make the team. They just want to be there. That's like the pinnacle of success for the amateur athlete, the lifelong marathoner, the dedicated runner. Let's say you go have a baby, and that baby's complicated, and you don't expect it to be complicated, and it keeps you in bed for a year. So you qualified during the window, accidentally got pregnant, accidentally was on bed rest, come back from that, you're fit enough to go. But what would have happened in that year off if you missed it by 20, if you made standard, if you missed it by 20 seconds? If there are 3 other people that qualified and had a higher ranking than you in Worlds and all of these events that you couldn't attend because you had a really difficult pregnancy, your spot on the Olympic team might be gone. So beyond injury windows, we think about that's a pretty big woman penalty. So what kind of incentive is there now for the professional female runner? Just saying, I'm not telling you how to feel about managing unexpected pregnancies, but I'm here to say, what kind of incentive is there now for the professional female athlete? So there are a lot of things I don't like about this new system. Not that anyone cares what a fat lady run coach in Denver, Colorado thinks about it, but as someone that has been running my whole life and still dreams of qualifying for the trials, this has not taken the Olympics further out of my purview, because I never ever expected to run that. The best I could ever hope for is to qualify and show up and get to run the trials. That would be cool. That would be fun. But yeah, this is not great, and it doesn't seem really smart either. If this was a category that only had men in it, and it was like, do we introduce a women's category? No, because this seems like the step you would take before adding a women's category and saying, do women really want to do this? I don't know. So a lot about this bothers me, not because of who is included, because of course we want the best, but if the rules exclude really great people pretty consistently, if it makes it really hard for people from poorer countries to show up and participate, I have a problem with that. And you should too, I would think. So Again, is it fair? Is it perfect? Nothing really is, but these are really big changes that don't seem particularly well thought out, and I have to wonder how many women were sitting at the table when it happened. I have to wonder who was in on that decision and whose input was discarded when that decision was made, because there got to be a whole lot. I mean, 219, I mean, these are beyond, so it used to be, if you to qualify for the women's B standard, that just means you get to show up and run the trials. It was 245. The A standard was 237. If you ran a 237 or better, you qualified for monetary support during your training for the trials. And this is always seen in the best interest of developing up-and-coming or brand-new athletes to the distance. And now we have blown 11 minutes past the A standard to 229. That is, granted, all of the women that went to the Olympics in 2012 and 2016 still would have qualified for 2020 under these new rules, but gosh, it's like when the Boston qualifying standards got just a little bit faster, and not massively faster, but a little bit faster, and it was like 5 minutes per age bracket. That was devastating to people. Like, now that number was already hard to reach. Now it's firmly out of reach. Imagine if you're like, I mean, I hate to keep bringing her up, but Stephanie Bruce Rothstein, man, she's had. Watching her in New York City, like, knowing how heartbroken she was with her performance there, watching other athletes that I care about, watching Carrie Goucher at Houston. Imagine now running under additional pressure, where 229 is a goal that as a professional runner you're trying to reach, and now it's not just a goal that you want to reach, it is it's a qualifying standard for the biggest stage on the planet. I don't know. It also seems kind of stupid because under this system, the top 3 winners of the Olympic trials might not even go to the Olympics. So why bother having the Olympic trials in the first place? It's just another race with far less meaning. So again, I can see the argument of if you're that person that finished, that's a way better runner, but just yet to have a really good day on the Olympic trials course. If you consistently finish 6th, 7th, or 8th at the Olympic trials, you're going to be really excited about this because you need a couple really good days elsewhere because you're a consistently quite strong runner. Maybe for the people that have finished between 4th and 20th in the marathon, in the Olympic marathon trials in the past, but have performed consistently elsewhere, they're probably really excited about this. But then there's another caveat. So one, and this is the final thing I'm going to say about it, is that the new points, the world ranking point system that the International Olympic Committee put forth, one of the other ways to qualify for the Olympics is to place top 10 in a world marathon major. Okay. Right now, 3 of the world marathon majors, Boston, Chicago, and New York, are held in the United States. Knowing that, we have a lot of really good American athletes here, and it's their home race. These are their home races. What sort of incentives will eventually appear for the Americans to consider put America first? You put America first, and you invite fewer international athletes. Again, not saying that I think that will happen. I'm saying it could. I'm saying the incentive's there. You get somebody that's an America first person that wants to give our athletes the best shot, then you're going to think back to the medals that were stripped in the past 3 years due to doping. And you're going to say you're doing it for your country and you're doing it for your sport. And would you be wrong? That's the question I'm not going to answer. So there you go. That is why you're hearing a lot of talk and a lot of disappointment about the new Olympic qualifying standards and how that's going to impact the one event most of my clients are going to care about the most, which is the Olympic marathon. So as far as the field for women, this shouldn't change very much. The women that we expect to see at the top of the field should all be fine, right? This is not really expected to impact the American women and our participation in the marathon. It's gonna hit them in pretty hard. And I'm not sure how that's gonna play out, but at last calculation I saw, it is entirely possible we might have. We're allowed to send 3 max. We might not have any. We'll see. Only time will tell. So then, turning to perverse incentives, we're going to look at the admission scandal. And the reason I think people have been asking me about this in particular is this notion of what a college degree is worth. Me personally, my husband and I are very much aligned in this area, but we come from very different backgrounds. I'm from a very rural part of Tennessee. And usually when people say, like, I'm from a small town somewhere, they're putting on a little bit. Like, I'm from a small town in New Jersey usually means I'm from a suburb of New York City. I'm from Westchester. I'm from Armonk. Those are very small towns for sure, but they're also very wealthy enclaves. I am from a rural area that is predominantly farming and factories. I worked in a factory in my senior year of high school. And I did not meet many people, anyone, undergrad or grad, that could say the same about their summer jobs or their nighttime jobs during the school year. Which is not to be like, I'm better than you because I came from further behind, but that is why college admissions, it changed the trajectory of my life. There is no question. I went to Georgetown undergrad, and getting in was a stretch because my high school doesn't send people to schools like Georgetown. We send people to... I had to take classes outside of my high school just to qualify for Georgetown admissions. And I had to do that for 3 years. Like, I had to take a lot of classes outside of school to qualify for Georgetown. My high school only offered 2 years of one foreign language. It only offered 2 laboratory sciences. It didn't offer enough math. I've heard it offers AP Biology now. That's one class. At the time, it offered 9, and it didn't for years. And the highest level of math that was offered was pre-calculus. Most people I met at Georgetown took that in 7th or 8th grade. Which is not to say that my high school was dinky. It served the needs of the population very well. The outlier was me, and I'm the one that needed to leave, so I did. So when I think about, had I not attended Georgetown, had I not taken out gigantic student loans, what my life would have been like would have been very different. When I think about, I moved abroad after graduation to Hong Kong to look for a job in finance because the world had collapsed. My degree in Russian was no longer seen as prescient. It was seen as stupid. This is the year 2000. The Asian flu is taken over and no one's hiring in financial markets because the bubble's about to burst. The Asian flu had caused the tech bubble is rising and things are starting to change. So when I moved abroad, the first thing I did was look through the directory, the Georgetown directory, and I found 2 people that worked on Wall Street. And I called them and asked for coffee. And that set off a series of events and a series of introductions that ended up with me finding employment in Japan 4 months later, where I lived for 4 years. And all of that arose from a phone call made to someone in a network that was likely to take that call from me, a little nobody, just because of the Georgetown connection. So, not to say that the network is particularly strong and you're guaranteed jobs. They're totally going to hire you over somebody more qualified just because you went to Georgetown. It doesn't necessarily work that way in a lot of the schools, but it's not supposed to. It's about getting that first meeting, leveraging that opportunity moving forward. Something that I would not have been able to do if I'd moved to Hong Kong and had attended, say, not to knock it, it's a great school, but East Tennessee State University, Middle Tennessee State University, University of Tennessee Knoxville, maybe if they'd heard of our football team, but it's not a pipeline school, meaning there are, the reason that the Ivy Leagues were coveted for so long was because if you wanted your kid to go work in investment banks came to a very small handful of schools to recruit summer analysts and to recruit full-time bankers. And the schools that I just named are not necessarily part of the pipeline. So either you're in or you're out, and everybody wanted their baby in the pipeline. So there's that. I would argue, had I gone to East Tennessee State University, what I could have still done is turn around and applied to Wharton and maybe gotten in. Wharton is where I attended grad school. And it was a wonderful experience. And I would not trade, that was so expensive, but I wouldn't trade those 2 years for the world, not least of which because I married my husband. I met him at Wharton, married him afterwards, but wanted nothing to do with him while we were there, but that's a different story. But when I think about, did I need Georgetown to get to Wharton? Arguably no. But But for a little girl from rural Tennessee, that Georgetown admission changed the trajectory of my life forever. For the Wharton degree was icing on the cake at a really odd time, 2007, when the finance world was starting to shift yet again, and I didn't think there would be a place for me left in it, and I needed to go wait it out somewhere safe, do something good. Oh, and my dad had just had a heart transplant, so it would be good to be back in the States and closer to home in something I could put on hold for a family emergency. You're not really allowed to do that in a career. So that, to me, so when I hear this story, this new admission scandal about very wealthy children of very wealthy families that are trying to push their child and cheat their child's way into an elite school, and I think all of them knew, all of the parents, maybe not all the kids, but I think all the parents knew what they were doing was wrong. It was the equivalent to the Olympics, right? If you're the only person not doping, are you doing the right thing, or are you a dummy? And I guess these people were convinced that they were dummies if they didn't do all the extras for their kid. And what kind of burns me up about it is that, like, kids like me that would have benefited, the trajectory of their life would have been irrevocably changed by admission to these elite institutions. They were denied spots, potentially, to these wealthy kids who, it was a headline yesterday, Lori Loughlin's daughter, she has a makeup palette at Sephora that they have now dropped. So she had a business. She has like 1 million Instagram followers. Attending Georgetown or whatever school it was that USC, that she, like, her parents cheated her way into, it didn't change anything for her. It would not have, she already had what most of us from my town would have been scraping to build. She already had access to those circles and that network of people that none of us would have been out of reach for someone like me prior to Georgetown. So I don't really understand why they were doing it. It's like, you took a really big risk for no real reward. It's not like, do I dope or do I not so I can win a spot at the Olympics, which would change the trajectory of my life and my retirement. I don't know. I truly don't understand what they were doing or why. And now some of them might be going to federal prison. It just seems really stupid. So yeah, so the question is loaded. Is it worth what they did? No, not for them. Like, the whole reason that, like, my husband went to fancy private schools. He went to Choate for high school, and then he went to University of Pennsylvania, an Ivy League school, undergrad, and then he turned around and went to Wharton for grad school, concurrent to Johns Hopkins. He has 2 graduate degrees from fancy places, and we ended up in this, like, another layer to the American dream is that with hard work and pluck and one good stroke of luck, you can go from rural Tennessee and end up in the same place as somebody that went to Choate and the Ivies and, flew private planes on vacations when he was a child. Very different experience from mine. We never took family vacations. We would go, I think we went to Gatlinburg once or twice. We did a college tour on the East Coast. And that was it. That's all I can remember. Went to Destin when I was 3. I mean, we didn't do vacation. So, like, when my husband and I talk about, like, our childhoods, I'm like, it's just too different. But we are the American dream in the fact that, like, I'm living it. A person like me married a guy like him, and he's a great guy. And I say this not to knock him in any way, because we all like to hate on, the wealthy and the fortunate, because, there's so much less of that to go around these days. But I digress. I guess what we both agree on is that, like, we don't really care if our children go to Ivy League schools because we have access to everything that they will need. And that second layer, by the way, exists. Undergrad doesn't matter that much. Go anywhere you want undergrad, and then if you still need to get in pipeline somehow to a job that you didn't have access to graduating from wherever you did, by all means, go, try to get into Wharton for grad school. We'll help you with that. But we're not going to be, like, scratching and biting and fighting, trying to get them into the best undergraduate institution we can. I'd rather save up the money and be like, okay, if you need grad school, here's some cash. And if you don't, here's money to buy a house. We're not going to blow it all on undergrad. We're going to be encouraging, we'll be encouraging the East Tennessee State University. We'll be encouraging, Alamosa. It's a great school here in Colorado. There are lots of great schools in Colorado. Mines. Oh my God, I would love it if my kids went to Mines because that means they're smart. Mines is gorgeous. It's a beautiful campus. I mean, why wouldn't you want to be in Golden, Colorado? It's terrific. So that's kind of how we look at it. Like, we went in those circles so our kids wouldn't have to. I did all this hard stuff so you wouldn't have to. There's a different path for you because my kids will not be raised in a rural area far from the circles that their parents have managed to land in. Now, granted, we are not anywhere near the circles of the kids of these that are caught up in the submission scandal, but that's kind of the point. Like, is it worth it? No. Especially not if you lose a lucrative job, an acting role about, a family on Netflix, and your child loses an income stream based off that risk you took that really wouldn't have changed their life in any way. A child who's uninterested in school, in college before they start is not going to magically become interested just because they're there. And if they have a way of making money already, like a makeup line, like influencer status, and the revenue streams that come from that, who cares? I don't think college is for everyone. But I can say that because I went to college. And I know why I went to college, because I saw what it was like for so many people that didn't have that degree. But now, the options, if you have that degree, are just as bleak if you have all the debt that you can't discharge of bankruptcy. I don't know what the answer is going forward, but cheating to get into the best school possible, hopefully this brings the type of change that we need to see in the college admissions and, frankly, college debt process, because that's a mess, and it's almost as big a mess as, frankly, USATF and the International Olympic Governing Committee. So there you go. My booty feels a little bit looser. My thighs do too. I hope your run was great today. I've got a couple of running questions from folks, so I might do an Ask the Coach stream tomorrow night if I have enough questions rolling in. I already have 3 or 4 that I think are really good and are all worth discussing. So if you have a question, hit info@coachedandloved.com. And if I have enough good questions, then you guys will see me tomorrow night at 5 o'clock for an Ask the Coach session here on Twitch, which might be streamed as well. Because I hear a lot of people I love Twitch. This is just better quality, everything all the way around, but some people really want to see it on Instagram or Facebook. And if that's the case, I will stream both places with 2 different devices. So do let me know in the comments if that is what you prefer. You're a coach, you are loved. Let's go win at what time I have left before my family comes back home and I have to go see Captain Marvel again. Have to. Hard Knock Life. Bye.